All right. Peter Itia is absolutely amazing. He's somebody that if you're not following him, you're not paying attention to him. Dr. Peter Itia is amazing, and he's got great information. He's written some great books. I've been on his show before. I was actually like a guest on his show like a long time ago, many years. And he has my good friend Gabrielle Lyon on the show, as well as Mike Boyle and Jeff Cavalier. So he's got some real legends, got some heavy hitters on the show. And I like what he's doing here. And he's done this before where he kind of has a panel and he asks a couple questions and then each person says their piece or two, and then he moves on to the next subject. And also in this video, I want to kind of just point out before it starts that, these things get edited a little bit, especially for social media. And so, especially like when you see the trailer, when you guys watch this, you check it out, whether it's, on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you check this out, you're going to notice, they have a trailer, and the trailer is intentionally to try to be thought provoking. And so we have to kind of keep in mind that whenever we see these things clipped, or whenever we see these things on social media, or we see a trailer for something, it's just a piece of a piece, and without being able to have further conversation with these people, or without listening to the long format, which you should do, because Peter Itia talked to these people for a few hours, and I recommend everyone kind of check it out. But they're all just talking about, and they're hypothesizing about what they think, are some of the best protocols for longevity. Truth is, no matter how qualified they are, or no matter how qualified I am or anybody else, no one really truly knows. We don't really know. But we do have some pretty good, compelling research and evidence in certain particular areas that leads us to speculate or to believe this is the closest thing to the truth that we have at the moment. So, having said all that, let's just play the clip, and I will make some comments on it.
Up until about 18 months ago, I was still squatting and deadlifting regularly, though with much less weight. I just sort of decided the risk-reward trade-off wasn't there for me. Do you think that's a mistake?
I don't think there's a compromise in the benefits you're getting from single-leg training. Like I said, there's probably more.
He's probably commenting on Peter Itia mentioning that he stopped doing like regular heavy barbell squats and moved to doing some single-leg stuff. I heard from a friend recently that actually was trying to incorporate a lot more single leg stuff, and they actually were running into like back problems and knee problems, which is kind of interesting. I guess it depends on how you do it and all these things, but you might think that something's like safer. Also, when we think about single leg, we have to understand that there's almost no such thing as single leg. Only in the case of machines would you have actual true single leg stuff, because you got to be suspended off the ground, correct? To do single leg work. Is everybody with me? Like if you do a lunge, that's not single leg work. Okay. If you do and the reason why I say that is your strength isn't limited by the leg that you're lunging forward with. It's limited by the strength of your body to be able to do the entire thing with both legs. A Bulgarian split squat, not a single leg movement. It could be viewed as a single leg movement. I'm not here to nitpick every little detail of everything, but it's important to note. And, I don't always like the argument of like when in the real world, but like my friend hurting his back and his knee, like it kind of makes some sense because, only doing single leg, like he hurt his knee and his back doing leg press because you're starting to load, you're loading one side literally. And that other side isn't really doing anything. It's just it's just sitting there. Anyway, I don't want to make too big a deal about that, but thinking that something's automatically safer can be a huge mistake because it's maybe not thought about as much as it should be. I also want to point something out too. Peter Itia saying, so he's been squatting and doing some of these movements for a while, and more recently he stopped. I wonder if he's noticed anything. And I wonder if he's noticed anything from squatting. And the reason why I bring that up is because Peter Itia is not heavily muscled. He's in great shape. No shade being thrown. But like if you're doing squats, right, and you're doing them heavy, he mentioned he was doing them heavy, is the purpose spinal loading? Is the purpose to be like a little bigger as opposed to, what's the goal? Just keeping bone density? Because if we're only keeping bone density or trying to maintain muscle mass, we don't need to go that heavy, in my opinion. And I don't even think we need back squats when it comes to some of this. So I guess let's just continue to play it and kind of see where it goes from here.
Slamming your hand in a car door for squatting, and then had the same conversation with yourself saying, hey, I just hurt my hand. I slammed it in the car door, and I can't wait till my fingers heal up because I'm going to go back and slam my hand in the car door, right? For some reason, squatting has such kind of a visceral attachment in strength and conditioning.
It's religious, right?
It's religious.
Let's pause here. Great comment there by the legend Mike Boyle, somebody that we have to have on the podcast. It's long overdue. That's a great comment. I mean, squats can really beat you up, right? They can be kind of brutal on the hips and the knees and so forth. And, why are we like looking forward to doing this thing that, can potentially cause some of this damage? Well, we've been taught that the squat is the king of all exercises, right? Some people kind of say the deadlift, it goes back and forth a little bit, but the squat, it's a valuable exercise. And one of the things that makes the squat valuable is its difficulty. The squat gets points for being a pain in the ass. When you learn how to execute something that is difficult, it's an amazing feat. And when you learn to become a master at something, it's an incredible thing. But squats can be arduous. They can take a long time to learn. There's a lot of shit going on when you learn how to squat. I personally feel like I ended up with some mastery of the squat. Not that I mastered the squat, because there's really no such thing, but I felt like I developed a level of mastery, meaning like I knew all the correct sensations that I needed to feel for me to lift the most amount of weight. Being able to squat, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000, 1,080, going through that whole process, it was just such an interesting journey of mixing up the different and coaching a lot of other people to squat huge weights too, as you saw a quick image there of Stan Efferding squatting 780 pounds. Here's myself with 780 pounds. There's Stan kind of going back and forth. And, I squatted in equipment. I wore like a squat suit. You can see here I'm in a squat suit, just absolutely smashing some of these weights in a single ply suit. Here's Stan Efferding with 820 pounds. So Stan is actually a good example of kind of what I'm talking about. Like Stan didn't have a lot of hypertrophy in his legs, but he broke an all-time world record in that weight class with his squat. He squatted like 865 he squatted 881, I believe. And that's no longer a record because all the records have been freaking totally and completely smashed. But yeah, you could see me kind of moving with those weights. I learned how to squat with a form and technique that worked for me. I wouldn't say it was perfect. It actually was quite far from perfect. And if I was able to really line it up, I think I could have squatted around 1,200 pounds. But there was like a couple small things that were just really difficult for me to manage. I had very difficult time with squatting the bar, getting the bar like kind of a little bit lower on my back. And that cost me. It cost me 120 extra pounds that I could have probably squatted if I could have figured out how to just get that weight on my back a little bit lower. But yeah, Boyle's bringing up some, like the reason why I think what Mike Boyle's bringing up is substantial is because he trains a lot of athletes. And everything always depends on who are we training and what is their goal, right? In the context of training somebody who's an athlete, or in the context of training somebody that even wants to be able to display athleticism, if it's somebody that wants to display athleticism, let's say it's some 35-year-old person or something like that, or even a 45-year-old person, okay? And they want to like look better, but they want to also move better. And they're undersized. Let's say they're 6'1" and they're like 168 pounds. It would be great to work with that person with some type of squats, but not necessarily a back squat. A back squat's going to take a long time to learn. It would be good to teach them a back squat in the background of everything, maybe at the end of workouts or at the beginning of workouts for warm-up, but it wouldn't be great to just have them really kind of hone in and focus on squats, because the likelihood that that person's going to be able to really move well at 6'1", being 170 or whatever the weight was I said, being able to support the weight on their back and all this different stuff, it's going to be a nightmare. So instead, you're like, okay, well, let's hypertrophy the legs. Let's get them to do a belt squat. Boom, perfect. Okay, well, we still want some like spinal loading. We still want, okay, well, let's get them to deadlift, or let's get this person on a calf raise and have them get underneath that calf raise and just get a lot of weight on their shoulders. Let's have them farmers carry. Let's have them, there's a lot of other options that you have. Let's have them hike up a sandbag on their shoulder and walk with it. I'd rather do shit like that. It's more functional, quote unquote functional, and less wear and tear. Obviously, you can hurt yourself with anything, but again, and I'm a fan of squats. I want to kind of make sure that's clear. I'm a fan of squats, but the context matters. Now, if it's somebody who's like, hey, I want to power lift, well, then we got to continue to keep smashing our hand in that car door, as Mike Doyle was pointing out.
It's absolutely religious.
Functionally, again, everyone can relate to the squat. The squat is something we do every day, every time we get out of a chair, every time we go to the bathroom. So I think there's the attachment.
But your point, Jeff, is a very good one, which is people are confusing a goblet squat. They're confusing that with this. This is the unnatural part, I think.
You're not going to piggyback someone in and take a shit. Like, that's not how it's going to work. In order to be able to use the bathroom, you only need to be able to bodyweight squat. So once you can bodyweight squat, you're good. Because, and this is where we get into adults versus athletes. Like, people say, what's an adult? What's an athlete? I'm like, an adult has a job that does not involve playing sports. So people don't see, I always say life is this gradual transition of filet mignon to beef jerky, right? And I'm in the beef jerky stage of life, firmly in the beef jerky stage of life.
I'm thinking I'm at a New York strip at the moment, just getting a little firmer.
But you think you're not what you used to be. And I actually posted a thing on my Instagram. They say the number one cause of injury in old men is thinking they are young men. And that's why when you get into should they squat, should they deadlift, I always say no, because I wrote down ego.
A lot of really excellent points there. The filet mignon to beef jerky, excellent point. There's just so many ways to train, and if you're turning into beef jerky, it's like, why not use cables? Why not, right? But also, to prevent your body from becoming beef jerky, why beat yourself up with certain types of movements? I went around the country and taught hundreds, and over the years, I've taught thousands of people how to squat and deadlift. There's some people that literally became powerlifters because of me. And they went into powerlifting meets and they executed a squat that they learned from either a video or learned from me firsthand at my gym that was free for over a decade, SuperTraining gym in West Sacramento, California. Or they saw a YouTube video or whatever it was. I've ended up communicating and teaching a lot of people how to squat. And what I've seen is that it's very difficult to teach someone how to do a barbell squat. It takes, it not always, there's some people that can just perform it because they're already athletic and they can move pretty well. But there's some people that are missing internal rotation. There's some people that are missing external rotation. There's some people where their back is super tight. There's some people where their shoulders are super tight. So when they go to put their arms on their bar, they're launching themselves forward the whole time. You have the difficulty of having females try to squat because females a lot of times have like a short torso and longer legs. Their hips are usually a little higher than a male that's of equal height, and so a girl has to kind of good morning their squats. They got to kind of figure out a way to continually lean forward until they break, quote unquote, break parallel. So there's a lot of red tape in trying to figure out how to squat. But one thing that's not touched upon here is how you're squatting. So look, if we're talking about, like, I'm going to be squatting the rest of my life, and I'm going to be squatting with a barbell on my back for the rest of my life. I don't do it nearly as frequently as I used to, but I still will take the giant cambered bar and I'll still do squats with it. Because the giant cambered bar, the bar, it hangs down out here to the outside. And someone else could use a transformer bar. Giant cambered bar, you can't even find them anymore. And they're not like rackable. Like you can't even really find it. It's like one of a kind. But I have one, so I'm going to use one. The weight's way down here, so I don't have to manipulate my arms and shoulders. So there's no compromise there. And that compromise in the way that you're standing and just holding the weight changes your movement pattern so much, all the way to the point where when I was teaching people, going around the country, teaching people how to power lift through CrossFit seminars, most of the dysfunction I saw was in the upper body and not in the lower body. And it was because their arms were wrenched back with on a barbell squat. I just call it a barbell squat because there's only one type of barbell squat, right? The other type of barbell squat is called a front squat. And that means that the bar is on the front of your body. There's a front squat and there's a squat. But I just call it a barbell squat because I know that some people are like, oh, well, is it a goblet squat or some other type of squat? And you can see here, Ryan's pulling up some videos back when I used to work out. And we have so that's what I was going to mention is a box squat. So if you want to squat for the rest of your life, there's only one type of squat to do, in my opinion, and that's a box squat. The box squat is incredible. And if you want to take it a step further, Dave Tate that bitch. Dave Tate that sucker. Ryan, see if you can bring up some footage of Dave Tate. You might have to go on his Instagram might be the easiest place to find the embarrassingly high squats that this guy does. He takes it. Dave Tate takes it to the extreme with how bad he cheats. But is this a shot of him? I mean, he's squatting super high. He's always squatting like bands and chains and all these different things. But the range of motion is going to be a key factor in teaching people to squat. And so a box squat is great because you can do it at whatever height you'd like. Okay. For people that are older, I'd advise, if you want to handle some weight, do it above parallel. If you want to work your range of motion, do it with a lot less weight. Do it with a lot less weight and have the focus be the range of motion. But there's really no reason to do box squats like super below parallel, I don't think. It's not really very advantageous, but if you wanted to, you could. I would say if you want to do bigger ranges of motion with your squat, then I would say your best bet is to do that with body weight squats, goblet squats, belt squats, and so forth, but not necessarily with a box squat. But a box squat, the reason why you can do it the rest of your life is because you're going to sit, you're going to relax on that box a little bit, and then you're going to spring back up. But you're not allowing your shins to really travel forward hardly at all. Maybe you can find it on YouTube or something, but I know he's got some good videos of him basically freaking out, squatting really wide. But the box squat, it lends itself to you being able to explore different foot positions. You could squat real wide. You could squat closer. You can mess around with utilizing some different barbells. It just has a way different impact than a regular squat. And then the thing would be to learn how to box squat. So when it comes to, I can listen to these guys, and much respect to all of them, and Gabrielle. I can listen to these people, and I do have a great deal of respect for them. But I don't really think any of them have hardly any experience at all with, Mike Boyle probably has some experience with box squats, but box squats they're incredible. They could be used forever. They're a box squat is just as safe, especially with a specialty bar. It's just as safe as utilizing the belt squat. So you heard ITEA talking about like risk to reward. Well, the risk to reward ratio of a box squat is awesome. You can handle some good weight on it and you're not going to get messed up. Again, I'm not saying like to max. I'm not saying any of that stuff. You can do that though. Like I still use singles. I still use triples. But when I use a single and triple nowadays, it's not 100% of my max. It's not a true 1 rep max. I'm not trying to max anything. I'm just going heavy. And I might do 3 sets of 1 or 4 sets of 2 or something like that. But yeah, box squats is where it's at. And if, furthermore, when we talk about squats, if we don't even think about the box necessarily, but we just think about the way that some sprinters squat, we were pulling up some videos the other day of Ben Johnson, one of the most famous sprinters of all time. He held the world record there for half a second and then, got taken away because he tested positive for steroids. But his coach, Charlie Francis, was a big proponent of lifting heavy-ass weight, and he was a big proponent of squatting. And Ryan's actually the one that brought it up to me in the gym. We were discussing some of this stuff about squats. And Ryan's like, yeah, well, what about like a sprinter? They squat. So like is straightforward sagittal plane type stuff, maybe squats are more advantageous for that kind of person. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a really good point. And Ryan mentioned sprinting. And you can see here, like Noah Lyles and some of these other guys, they're squatting really high. And sometimes they're not. So they are utilizing a box. Saquon Barkley uses a box, but this is not a box squat. You would kind of say, well, he's squatting on a box, so Mark, it's a box squat. That's not. He's using the box as a target. You can use the box or a bench or something like that as a target, but that's not the way that you would normally do a box squat, which you can do a box squat that way as well. But I would just say that's like a touch and go squat. And the reason I'm bringing some of this up is, you know how long it takes to teach someone how to squat like that? Maybe 10 minutes. Maybe 10 minutes. If you're teaching someone how to squat to 90 degrees or even slightly above, look how jacked. Damn, he was awesome. Who cares? And now they have the Olympics now with the steroids in it. That's going to be great. Ben Johnson should come back. He was so strong. I think he benched like 385 or something, and or maybe a little bit more. You got to keep in mind, like, this guy. Look at, jeez, interesting, right? Like, you don't really see anyone running like that right now. Like, he's running with power. Like he almost looks like an influencer sprinting rather than a sprinter sprinting. He does not look like Carl Lewis when he's sprinting. He's jacked, right? He's jacked, so his body's going to be stiffer, but it shows you there's more ways than one to get some of this done. And maybe for Ben Johnson, maybe he needed this kind of training, and maybe someone like Usain Bolt doesn't. Like, maybe they just don't need to train to this length. I love all the unconventional, like the coach or his training partner or whatever, like scissoring him down while he's like doing a lat pull down. Like, how weird. But hey, you got to get your training done whatever way you can. I just don't even know if people lift nearly as much as what he was doing, although Noah Lyles seems like he trains quite a bit. I think Noah Lyles has squatted like 500 pounds a couple times. And yeah, Saquon Barkley comes to mind too. His squats aren't like, they're not astronomically high, but they're definitely not to depth, but like they're not close. And I'm not saying they should be. I'm saying that this is a different way. This is a great way to learn how to squat and learn how to handle some weight. And to me, I think that's a great range of motion right there. And I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes think that stuff's just stupid. Like, yeah, why do we squat below? Who cares about? If you ever saw the amount of dysfunction that I see when I've seen people squat below parallel, as a matter of fact, I have only met a couple of people in my entire life that could squat below parallel without giving up something. And yeah, you can see there's Noah Lyles. And Noah Lyles weighs like 165 pounds. It's like unbelievable. He's just banging on these reps like easy, like they're nothing. Super explosive, high bar. The bar's just like stuck on his neck, basically, not even on his back. That's not even people sometimes say back squat. That's not even a back squat. That's a neck squat. Got the weight right on his neck.
I have what I call the iron graveyard, right? There's a few exercises that just belong in there. And
Talk about it. Up until about 18 months ago, I was still squatting and deadlifting regularly, though with much less weight.
Yeah, really well said. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear from my buddy Gabrielle on that clip, but that's why you got to watch the whole thing. You got to listen to each person. I heard them get into all kinds of great conversations, and hopefully, I get to be part of something like that. I'm envious. I think that's really cool. It's what a cool honor to I don't know if they're all in the same room or what's going on exactly, but what a cool honor to be on a panel like that and to have discussion. And each one of these people, they have different experiences. Dr. Peter Itea and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, they both are people that actually, they actually have patience. Not patience like they take their time. They have patience as in people that they help. They're physicians, I should say, and they both are active in that role. And that's also something to take into consideration because sometimes, although they work with a lot of real high level people, I know Gabrielle, her heart is, a lot. She puts a lot of time into working with the military and things like that. And so when you're working with some military people, that's a different category too. There's military people. There's people that are 80 years old that just, haven't taken care of themselves, haven't eaten very well, haven't exercised much. And then there's the crowd, that Mike Boyle has been coaching and communicating with, which is a lot of athletes over many, many, many years. I know he works with other people as well, but mainly athletes. And then Jeff Cavalier, so what a great job by Peter Itea bringing all these people together. Jeff Cavalier being highly influential with Athlean X, his YouTube channel, where he's ended up with millions of followers. And he, I think you got to tip your hat to Jeff Cavalier because he's somebody else I got to get on the show. He's been talking about, athletic movements and different types of movements. And he's been talking about a lot of this stuff for a long time. And now we have kind of this hybrid movement. We have people talking about, movement practices along with some strength practices. And it's awesome that someone like Jeff Cavalier has been preaching this stuff to people for many, many years. And it's great to see that a lot of this stuff people are starting to shed a lot of light on this topic, on this subject. I saw them also talking about, hypertrophy and muscle mass being the currency. And that's the drum that Gabrielle Lyon has been beating for a long time. And having more muscle mass going into your later years can be really advantageous. And, I like the message. And I think that, look, it'd be better, the world would be a better place if everyone's jacked and tan. Everybody works on getting outside, get some sunlight here and there, and everybody works on acquiring some muscle mass. Your definition of acquiring muscle mass could be different than somebody else's. So you can look like Jeff Cavalier, or you can have more of a goal to look like Jay Cutler. I think any of it's fine. The Jay Cutler example obviously involves performance-enhancing drugs, which is a whole other rabbit hole, which might not lead to great health outcomes. But let's just say a natural bodybuilder, right? You can kind of be thin and shredded like Jeff Cavalier and be able to do a lot of different movements, or you can go more bodybuilder-ish, or you can go more just flat-out athlete, just wanting to be a good athlete. And there's also nothing wrong with holding body fat. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be built like an offensive lineman, or wanting to be built like a power lifter or a weightlifter. There's nothing wrong with having, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with having a little extra on you and being a little thick. I think that exercise and a lot of what these guys are talking about, doing these different movements and stuff like that, is going to be something that can assist with keeping you healthy along with other good practices. But the idea that you have to completely eliminate the squat, I would say no. I would say you have to just look at what type of squats you're going to do, and you have to know, as these guys would agree, I'm sure if we were all communicating together, it depends on who you're communicating with, what are their goals, and what is it that we're trying to do. And what I would say is, like, if you're somebody that thinks you have to squat all the time and you're squatting all the time and your knee hurts and your back or your hip, or like, it's just annoying. I don't want to tell you to discontinue squats altogether, but what I would say is, like, start to think about doing different types of squats and still keep that barbell squat in there. Like, still do it here and there, just so you know how to do it and that you don't lose some of your strength in that particular movement. But start to learn maybe a different way. And Ryan also brought up another thing that was really interesting: Olympic lifting shoes. Olympic lifting shoes, or putting a dime underneath a 10-pound plate underneath your heels, can really fix a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And that's what I mentioned. That's what I was talking about earlier about, like, I haven't seen many people squat with great form in person without giving up something. You're usually giving up, like, you'll end up with like a butt wink, or you'll end up with collapsed ankles. Like, you'll end up with something's always going to happen every single time. What I've seen from people is they'll have their toes pointed outward just a little bit, and as they go to squat downward, their toes will continually point more and more outward as they go down. And while that happens, while their feet are going this way, they're also going that way too on the inside of that ankle bone. So the feet are going like that and they're going like that. You know who does that? Almost every single person I've ever met in my life, if they squat deep enough. You squat down and you keep going down, 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 down. That's what you end up with. That's why I think you're best off, like, not getting rid of squats. I think squats are awesome. Body weight squats, goblet squats, squat with a sandbag, all these different ways of squatting. Do the lighter weight squats, full range of motion, and the heavier stuff, either do a box squat, a belt squat, or a really high sprinter squat where they were doing some of those touch and go on the bench. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.